First of all, I want to just welcome everybody to this feast story swap from wherever you are in the world. And it is just after 7:30 p.m. In Singapore, but I think we have a very wide range of times. Is anybody further than 5 hours behind us? That's Moscow, and I assume London is 7 hours, is that right? At the moment, yeah, okay. And then Australia, we're like 2 hours even further ahead of us. So if all goes well, this evening you're going to be hearing storytellers who are speaking to us from India, Hong Kong, Moscow, here in Singapore, the Philippines, and possibly the UK as well. And as I mentioned just a few moments ago, we're really pleased that we have, for the first time, a couple of storytellers joining us from Turkey. It's really exciting to see how Feast is beginning to spread and bring more and more people together. And while we're, on the one hand, we're very excited, I think, because today we've set a record for the sheer number of people who are joining in the swap. Sheila, what is the update? I mean, we had actually 100 people, more than 100.
Plus, probably about 105.
So that's a cause for celebration, but of course, at the same time, we're very sad that it's in these kind of circumstances which have isolated us, separated us, divided us, but at the same time, of course, are uniting us and bringing us together into rather like the Florentines in Boccaccio's story, The Decameron, how they escaped from Florence to a safe place where they could survive the plague 600 years ago by sharing stories. And that's what we are doing, and possibly continuing that tradition of coming together and sharing stories. Earlier this week, I actually recorded a story which I sent to a school, and it was about the soldier who unfortunately gets killed in a battle, and his soul goes on that journey in the afterlife. And he gets given the choice. He's been a good man, so he's going up to heaven, but he gets the chance to visit hell first. And he's very surprised when he gets to hell, because I don't know what you imagine hell to look like, but hell was this enormous dining room with many, many, many tables, and each table was piled high with the most delicious food. And there were many, many people standing around the tables, but I'm happy to say there were very few storytellers in hell. I wonder why. And all these people, despite all this magnificent food, was starving, you know, cheeks sunken in, could see the ribs standing out on their chests. And the young man was surprised. He said, why? Why don't they eat the food? And his guide said, oh, because in hell, you get given a pair of chopsticks, but not the chopsticks that we here in Asia are very familiar with. No, these were really long, like, 4 feet, 1.2 meters long. So of course, when you try and eat, the food is somewhere, and you can't eat. And so they starve. And the soldier said, oh, this is terrible. Please bring me up to heaven. And he came up to heaven, and I don't know what you imagine heaven to be like. But heaven looked exactly like hell. Big dining room, many tables, wonderful food, lots of people. And there were only two differences. One, lots and lots of storytellers in heaven. And everybody was very well fed and happy and smiling. And the young man turned to his guide and said, aha, I know, no 4-foot-long chopsticks in heaven. And the guide said, oh no, we have these very long chopsticks here too. But here in heaven, we know that if you feed your neighbor will feed you. And I think that's what we're doing tonight, isn't it? Because we are in hell, that's no question, this lockdown and what it means to people and the suffering that the isolation causes, the anxiety about finance, about jobs, about the risk of infection. This is hell. But we can choose to make it a heaven by what we decide to do. And I think coming together in this way at this time is how we're trying to turn this really bad situation into a good one. And I share that story because the first story that we have tonight is from Alla in Moscow, and you were telling me that you had created this with some mums as part in kind of a response to this. So can you just tell us a little about the background to the story before you go into it?
Yeah, when all this, I would say, hell started, we really thought that we have to take care of our children and support them somehow. And we decided to create a story for them. We really wanted some strong images to speak to our children. To some of us have grandchildren, so to speak to just to support the children around us. That's why we decided to create a story, and we did. And I'm more than happy. I'm absolutely happy to share it today with everybody. And if you like, I mean, guys, if you like it, you are more than welcome to share it all around if you like the images. For us, it sounds really true.
So
do I start?
Please.
Okay. This story happened in one cold country. Do you hear me well?
We can hear you very well. Yes.
So, this story happened in one cold country. Winter was so long there that people have completely forgotten about warm summer. But you know what? People in this country were brave and skillful, and they learned how to make houses out of ice. They polished ice in a very special way, and it sparkled in the sunshine like real diamonds. So visitors from all over the world came to see these masterpieces. And of course, people of the country were quite proud of their houses. But one day, people noticed, oh no, the sun, it's so hot and it's so bright. Their houses began to melt. Oh no, shouted people, we should save our houses. Remember, they were skillful. So they took their axes and their saws and they built a huge roof to protect all the country from this horrible sunshine. Oof. But a new trouble came. The warm wind. Warm wind was threatening and trying to melt their houses. Oh no, shouted people. And they built a tall wall which surrounded all the country. It was so tall that it reached the roof. And now there was no chance for the sun or for the wind to threaten the houses. Whew. But you know what? It was so cold. Oh, and it's not so cold, of course, and also so dark in the country now. Suddenly, a lot of bats came from nowhere. Oh, people were scared because bats are not very nice creatures, you know. But these were very special bats. Each bat carried a tiny seed in its claws. And where the seed fell, a magnificent tall flower grew. And when it blossomed, it radiated dim illusory light. It radiated around dim illusory light, which played all the colors. Oh, what a relief in the darkness. But of course, it was still very, very boring. And I forgot to tell you, this light had a very special quality. Actually, people couldn't see clearly in its light. For example, one friend rose up hand to greet another, but the second thought, oh no, he's going to beat me. And this light turned the kindest smile into a horrible grin, and kindest eyes into pieces of ice. People looked around, and they got scared, their wits out. Oh no, monsters around us! And of course, you know, the recipe, axes and saws, and a tall fence surrounded each house to protect from the neighboring monsters. Okay, but it was so dark actually, and so boring in this lockdown. But soon people found out that if they smelled the scent from the flowers, All bad thoughts flew away. They forgot all the troubles. Unfortunately, with their troubles, they forgot to wash their faces, to comb their hair. They forgot that they should go to work. They even forgot to take their children to school. But who cared, huh? So, of course, it was very boring for the children, this lockdown. I guess you know. So, one day, a boy and a girl, just a brother and a sister, they climbed up the old ladder to the attic. And there they found an old chest. They opened it and started rummaging in its belly. And you know what? They found a strange stick with a short threading tail. It smelled so nicely. So, the children ran to their parents. Mommy, Daddy, what's that? We don't know, said parents. Throw it away. But children didn't. They ran to their grandma and to their grandpa. What is it? What is it? Grandpa took the stick. I remember, he said. I remember. When I was a boy, just like you, I also had a grandpa. And my grandpa, as it was warm in our country at that time, he had some bees. They gave honey, sweeter than all the sweets. And of course they gave some beeswax. And my grandma made candles, just like that, out of beeswax. Why, said children, to eat? No, said grandpa. I'll show you the trick. And he climbed up the ladder to the attic, and he found there in the chest matches, and he lit the candle. Immediately everything around was flooded with this warm, honey yellow light. And in this true light, children saw their dirty faces, their tangled hair, their filthy clothes. Of course, they ran down, they washed, they combed down their hairs, changed their clothes, and with this new true light, they went around looking and finding something very interesting. And then they went outside in the garden. Suddenly, they saw that someone was looking at them through the hole in the fence. Monsters! And they ran home. Mommy, Daddy, monsters are looking at us. Parents locked the door. But then Mommy said, you know what? We have this true light now. Let's look. Who lives behind the fence? So Daddy took his axe, and very slowly they approached the fence. Daddy made a hole a little bit bigger into a small window. And through this window, they saw there were no monsters behind the fence. Only just the family, just like their family. And their neighbor said, this light we also wanted. Children ran to their grandma. Granny, Granny, do you remember how to make candles? Yes, I do, said Grandma. I remember it now. And together they made a lot of candles, and they shared these candles all around, and everybody found out that there were no monsters, just good people. So they removed all the fences, and in the new light, they found out, they just saw that their crystal houses had turned into filthy, half-melted heaps of ice. And they also saw the fence around the country. Children said, let's go, let's see what's there behind. No, said parents, remember, monsters, no. But the other people, the other adults, looked at each other and said, why not? We are all together now. Who can harm us? So, you know the recipe, again axes and again saws, and they made a door and they went out. And there was summer outside, the blue sky and the sun shining in the sky, the birds singing, the butterflies flying above their flowers blossoming, the green leaves rustling on the trees. Children took off their warm hats and their scarves and their snowsuits and their warm boots, and they started running barefoot on the green grass. And then people looked at their country, and no one, even the most scared, didn't want to go back in this dark cave. So they removed the fence and the roof, and they saw that these magic flowers, what happened to them? In the bright sunlight, they shrinked and turned into the green ash, and the warm wind flew it away. And the hot sun melted the filthy heaps of ice, and the golden rain washed away all the dirt, and a great rainbow crossed the sky above the country. Remember, people were very skillful, and they built a lot of new houses, and they planted a lot of new vegetables, and they grew a lot of new gardens, and so on and so on. And they sang songs, and they smiled to each other. But you know what? They had learned the lesson. People, built a lot of small houses for the bees, beehives. So they would always have honey and, of course, beeswax, just in case.
Oh, lovely, 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 lovely. Very nice. Thank you, Alla. So much in the story and about this situation, but of course, climate change. We have that worry behind us, or maybe that's a worry for us in the future. And yet the story also offers so much hope. I love the ending with the golden rain and the sun melting the dirty ice, and then the rainbow. I thought that was just a beautiful way to finish the story. And I can imagine too that if it would be a good story to share with kids at the moment, because the opportunities for illustrating that story and getting kids to do pictures to go with it would be great. You had them singing songs, and I think that would also be another wonderful activity, is for a kid or a family to create a post-COVID song. So thank you very much for that story.
I have a kind of script, so I can definitely send it to you then, yeah?
Thank you very much indeed. That was great. And again, yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
We loved it. Great way. I'm so glad we had that to start this session off. Very special. Okay, so now we're going to, thank goodness we don't need planes, otherwise we'd be grounded, wouldn't we? We'd never get anywhere in storytelling. We're going to go from Moscow to Hong Kong, where Lynne is waiting, sat in front of this magnificent piece of furniture behind you.
Sorry?
I say you're sat in front of this magnificent piece of furniture.
Thank you. Okay.
Very good. So.
Okay, so, well, hello everybody. I'm in Hong Kong, as Roger said, and I've been here about 16 years now. My storytelling started in Emerson College when I did the very first training there, and I've never looked back, really. So this story, even though a lot of countries claim it, I first heard it from a book of Tibetan tales. And it's about a man with his son who lived in the steppes, and it was just grass and cold and heat with the seasons. It was very harsh in the winter and very hot in the summer. And one day, his favourite horse, it just ran away. It just bolted, just went. And the people, they knew how much this horse meant to him. And so they came up to him and said, "Oh, we're so sorry about your horse. We know how much you loved it. Oh, you'll never get another one like that." Oh, well, I don't know whether it's good news or bad news, really. We'll have to wait and see. But several days passed, and all of a sudden that horse came back. But that horse wasn't just on its own. That horse brought back a herd of wild horses. And when the people saw this, they once again went to him and said, "Oh, isn't that brilliant? Such good luck. That's wonderful. Such good luck. That's great. You've got your horse back as well." Well, he replied, I'm sorry, I don't know whether it is good luck. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. We'll have to wait and see. Several days later, the young man, he was a bit impatient. He wanted to get training those wild ponies, those horses. And so he climbed on one of them. Now, because these are wild horses and never had anybody sitting on them, this one reared up and then galloped away, and galloped so fast that the man fell off the horse and broke his leg, quite badly actually. They went to him and said, "Oh, we're so sorry about your son. That's awful. Such a bad break. It's going to take ages to get better. We're really sorry about that." But again he replied, "Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I do not know. We'll see." Now, the very next day, the soldiers came and took all the young men away. They conscripted them to be in the war. All of them, that is, except that young man with the broken leg. Well, the people went to him again and said, "Oh, you're so lucky. What luck you've got. You've got your son. Ours have gone to war. You really are lucky." But again, the man replied to them, "Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. Only time will tell."
Thank you very much, Lynne. That's a great story, isn't it? Yeah, I love it. I love it. And it's an important thing to remember, isn't it? I think I say it's an important thing to remember. We get very, locked into the moment, and we become very short term, perhaps, or near field in our view of the future. And that story is just so important about telling us to remember, keep a sense of perspective. And possibly, as with the heaven and hell story, it's really very much about your attitude, isn't it? And if you can keep positive and see positive virtues in a situation, then it's possible, I think, to turn around a bad one into something that has some hope. So thanks very much. I always enjoy listening to the way you tell a story, Lynne. Beautiful, beautiful. And an object lesson too. It's always nice to have some short stories just to vary these things. People, a lot of the offers that I had were for kind of 9 and 10 minute stories, and that just kind of it's just nice to be able to offer something with variety. So thanks, Lynne. Well, now I'm going to go very close to home, because just down the road, as it were, and here in Singapore, Swee. I say down the road, I mean actually on the far side of the country, but I mean, having been speaking of perspective, Moscow and Russia, and here we are, Singapore. Yep. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so over to you if you want to say just a little about yourself, or what you're doing with COVID, and then into your story.
I have a big household here. We've got 9 people in my house, and wow. Tonight so happens everybody's on Zoom, almost everyone, and so we're all in the different spaces in the house. And I'm hoping the Wi-Fi doesn't crash on me. Yeah, I've been been yeah, I've been busy. On the one hand, with one of the sons who has home-based learning. On the other hand, been busy with some storytelling, learning how to use Zoom to do storytelling, and learning how to do video recording, learning how to look at the camera. I really find it not easy because I'm so used to looking at human beings.
Yeah, it's a big switch.
Yeah, it is a big switch. And then, okay, as to my story, some of you, if you're from Singapore, you may have heard of the legend of Raden Mas, and it's actually a big contrast from the first two stories, because it's actually a rather tragic story. But in preparation for telling to children, because this is our very local legend, I did recraft it to make it more friendly, child friendly, so not so tragic. You see what I mean? But I left the really tragic part and made it really short. That part, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, possibly if you had a version that you wanted to share, the real deal, the tragic story, we could also attach that one as a text with it, if you're comfortable with that. Okay, but good.
So I should start?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me see whether you can hear this. Can you hear this?
Yes. Very faint dinks, they've gone.
Long time ago, there was a father and a daughter. They traveled from Indonesia to Singapore on a boat. Singapore at that time was called Singapura. The father was called Pangeran Adipati Agong. He was a prince from the island of Java. He was carrying his baby daughter on the boat. You see, his wife was killed by his own brother, and sadly he left the country to go to Singapura. Now, he arrived at the southern part of Singapura, a place called Teluk Blangah. There was a small village, and he started a new life there. He became a farmer and didn't tell anybody his true identity. So every day, he went out to the farm to till the land, bringing his baby daughter along. He would lay her on the grass, and then he worked. Soon, that baby girl, whose name is Raden Mas Ayu, grew up, and she was old enough to help in the house and to cook for both of them. Now, Pangeran loved his daughter very much. He made sure that she had enough to eat, enough clothes to wear, and slept well and warmly every night. She was his little princess, but he didn't spoil her. He made sure she learned to be kind and to be helpful. And so the villagers liked Raden Mas very much, even the village cat. Now the cat followed her everywhere she went. One day, some pirates attacked the village, and Pangeran fought bravely against them and defeated the pirates together with the villagers. He was a hero, and the Sultan of Singapura found out about it. And the Sultan also found out that he was a prince. And so he offered his daughter in marriage to Pangeran. The daughter of the Sultan married Pangeran. So Pangeran now had a new wife. Raden Mas had a new mother. Both had a new life ahead. Things changed, but not for the better. You see, the stepmother hated Raden Mas. She didn't like her at all. She found her always wearing those simple clothes and that dirty black cat. She liked to play with that dirty black cat. And she was jealous of Raden Mas. Jealous that the villagers and the people all liked her so much. She was so popular. Worse still, she felt Pangeran loved his daughter more than loved her. So she determined to do all kinds of things to bring trouble to Raden Mas. One day, she knocked down a vase in the palace. And then she screamed, "Oh, Pangeran, Pangeran, look what your daughter did! She broke my favorite vase. Look at that!" Pangeran and Raden Mas rushed in. Pangeran looked at his daughter, who could only shake her head. She didn't dare say anything. She didn't dare to say that stepmother lied. But meow! In came the cat, limping. Quickly, Pangeran said, "Ah, it's the cat. It's not my daughter. The cat broke your vase." Stepmother was so angry. That dirty black cat came to save Raden Mas. Another time, she went into her wardrobe. She took out one of her most beautiful kabayas. She tore it to pieces. And then she screamed, "Oh, Pangeran, Pangeran, look what your daughter did. She doesn't like me. She took one of my most beautiful kabayas and tore it to pieces." And in came Pangeran and Raden Mas, who was again speechless. Pangeran looked at the torn pieces. He looked at his daughter, who shook her head. She didn't say anything because she didn't want to say stepmother lied. But in came the cat with a few pieces of the cloth. Quickly, Pangeran said, "Oh, it was a misunderstanding. Look, it's the cat. And it looked guilty. My daughter didn't do it. My daughter didn't do it." Oh, inside stepmother's heart, she was fuming mad. She had to find another way to get Raden Mas into trouble. And she did. One day, Raden Mas was at the pond playing with some fishes. And stepmother from her palace saw what Raden Mas was doing. So she quietly crept behind Raden Mas. She was ready to kick her into the pond. And just as she was about to do it, she lifted up her leg when meow, the cat came and hissed. That shocked her. She fell into the pond, splash, and she screamed, "Ah!" Pangeran and all the servants rushed over. And she said, "Look what your daughter did! She hated me, so she pushed me into the water, into the pond. Look, look!" This time, not even the black cat could save Raden Mas. Now the stepmother, as if this was not enough, she continued to hurl all the unkind words. "She's horrible, she's bad, she's evil, she's a witch." And that was too much from Pangeran. He got angry, went over to her and slapped her, only to regret. He walked off. But everyone saw that stepmother was embarrassed. And in her heart, she determined to find a way to punish Pangeran and Raden Mas. And that she did. She found out her nephew liked Raden Mas. And so She planned, together with a nephew, to kidnap Pangeran and then locked him up. Then she went to Raden Mas and told her that she had to marry her nephew or her father will die. Raden Mas loved her father. She remembered how he brought her up, how close they were together, and she had no choice but to agree to the wedding. On the day of the wedding, it was a grand wedding where everybody was invited. Then the Sultan said, according to our custom, the wedding couple's parents must be present. Now, Raden Mas, where is your father? Raden Mas looked at her stepmother, who gave her the dagger looks. She didn't dare say anything. But we heard something. Oh, it was the most awful scream that a cat could make. Everyone heard it. The Sultan heard it, and he felt perhaps the cat had something to say. And the cat led the Sultan and his soldiers to find Pangeran. They found him, and they brought him out of that secret place back to the palace. Raden Mas was so happy to see her father, but the nephew wasn't. Quietly, he took out a crisp dagger and he lunged towards Pangeran. Raden Mas saw that. She spread her body. She put her body in between both of them, and she died with a dagger piercing her heart. Raden Mas died in her father's arms. And today, we know that she is buried at the foot of a little mountain near in Teluk Blangah. And there is a shrine there today to remember her for her sacrifice and her love towards her father.
Thank you. Thank you. That's it's funny. I can't remember when I last heard that story, and thank you very much for sharing that. I have to say for those people who have not been to Singapore, to describe it as a little mountain, I think that's rather gilding the lily here. The highest point in Singapore, I think, is about 174 feet above sea level. So a little mountain would be very
I thought
funny.
I could swindle everybody to
nice
believe
try.
that there is a mountain.
Okay, okay.
You exposed me.
Yeah, sorry. But
I
wow.
think what happened was, if I were to tell our local children, I would say Mount Faber. But I realized there are lots of people here who don't know that place. Yeah.
Sure. You've obviously been working really hard on your Zoom technique, because I thought the way that you handled the puppet and the way that that you brought the puppet into the story, it was like, oh wow, and it just works so well. The eyes, there, and the tongue, the mouth, and the close proximity to the camera. That was just stunning. Just really an object lesson in how you can bring in a puppet into a story and just add a different dimension, and the play with it when you brought it up and it was kind of lapping at your neck and so on. I just thought that was delightful. So there's an example, obviously, of somebody who has made the most of this time enforced to work with the camera, which I know for a lot of people takes time to get accustomed to, and I think you're doing really well. The eye contact was fantastic throughout, and as I say, the use of the puppet was brilliant. Well done. So thank you very much for sharing that story.
Thank you. Worked very hard.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and sometimes we need to, isn't it? And again, because it didn't distract you, you weren't. There were other distractions in the house as you were telling the story, and I thought you handled that very well. So excellent. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that obviously is quite a sad story. So I'm actually I'm really glad. Sangeeta, are you there? And
Yes, sir.
Excellent, very good. We were going to start with you today, just because I think you have a lighter story, but now it's serendipity that you are able. Where are you speaking to us from, Sangeeta?
I'm from Tamil Nadu. I'm from a remote village called Yean, from India.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. And you work as a storyteller?
Yes, I am by passion. I'm a storyteller, and I'm working as a teacher by profession.
Okay. And what age kids do you teach?
I handle kids of 5 to 7.
Oh, perfect age for stories as well. Very good. Okay, so would you like to share with us your story?
It's a short story about animals, and we are going to the forest. Are you ready to travel with me to the forest?
I certainly am. You see, I'm in the forest already. Look, right behind me.
Okay. Can I start?
Yes, please.
Yes. Kadakelu, kadakelu, Sangeeta kadakelu, 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 Sangeeta kadakelu. I am Sangeeta Prakash. I am from Yean. I'm going to narrate you a beautiful story about hyena. Do you know how does the hyena laugh? Bark? It always barks like human laughter. Once upon a time, in a huge jungle, there lived many, many animals, with fierce, scary ones, little tiny one, giant, big one. And there lived a hyena which always goes. One day, this little hyena named Spotty was very, very, very sad. Very sad. It was walking through the jungle and it saw a tall giraffe munching leaves from a big tree. It went near the giraffe and asked, "Oh, giraffe." "Yes, what do you want?" "Giraffe, I lost my laugh. Can you get me my laugh back?" "Laugh? Wait for a minute." And the giraffe searched all over and said, "I can't hear anything up." "Oh, thank you, giraffe." And the Spotty started to walk again inside the forest. And it saw a rabbit running inside the burrow. And it asked, "Can you please find my love, dear rabbit?" And rabbit said, "Oh, no. Wait for a minute." And it went inside the burrow and searched for love, but it couldn't find anything. It came out and said to hyena, "Hyena, I couldn't find anything inside my burrow. Sorry, I can't help you anymore." Hyena was very sad. Spotty walked again into the forest and saw hippo playing in the water, splish and splash in the water. Went near the hippo and asked, "Hippo, you're my friend, right? I lost my love somewhere. Can you please find it out, please?" And the hippo put its head into the water and searched down. But it couldn't find it and said, "No, I couldn't find it, Spotty. I'm sorry." Spotty was very sad because it lost its love. It went near a big tree and sat down. You know who was on the branches of the tree? It was the monkey named Manu. Manu called Spotty, "Spotty, Spotty." But there was no answer for Spotty. So Manu came down and sat near Spotty. "Oh, Spotty, what happened? Why are you so sad?" "Manu, you know one thing, I lost my love. I couldn't get it back. I asked giraffe, it said it is not there up. And I asked hippo, it said it is not there down. And I asked rabbit, it also said he can't find it for me." "Don't worry, I'm always there to help people, right? I am Manu. Now tell me, how did you lost your love?" "You know one thing, I was playing with my friends. I just fell down. And my big teeth were shown to everyone. All were teasing me and laughing at me. So I got scared and frightened. And you know, from that time, I lost my love. I'm trying and trying and trying. I couldn't get it back. Even giraffe, rabbit, hippo, no one is able to get it back. Oh, please, please, Manu, help me to get my love back." Don't worry, I'll back just in a minute. And the Manu, the monkey, just went to the nearby tree from a beautiful nest. He took a colorful feather and came near to the hyena and started to tickle. What are you doing? Leave me. And the hyena started to laugh. It became louder and louder. Started to roll down and in the ground, and it was louder and louder and louder. Finally, hyena found its laugh, and there came rabbit, hippo, and giraffe, and asked Manu, "How did you able to find this laugh back? We are trying for a long time, but we couldn't able to find it." It's nothing impossible, right? Happiness is always within us. I just tickled him and he laughed and the happiness came out. That's it. Ha ha. And this hyena said, the spotty was so confident and said, "Thank you, Manu. I got my love back. If anyone tease me or smile at me, I don't bother. From now on, I'll never lose my love. I'll be confident. I'll be so courageous. I will never bother about others teasing. I'll be confident. I'll never lose my love." Right? And from this, I'm going to tell you that happiness is always within us and we should bring it out and spread happiness all around. This is a small story for the children till 10 years. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing the story. I think your kids must be so lucky to have you as their teacher if you're going to be sharing that kind of story with them. And the moment when I read in your the synopsis that you sent, the summary of the story, and you said that happiness is within us, and I thought, yes, that's absolutely a story that I wanted to have shared this evening. So
my network connection is very, very low, and I was too upset, and somehow I got the connection. I could catch up. Thank you very much.
Yeah. See, is it good? Is it bad? It all comes out in the end. I wish we could sort of send a tickle. We haven't managed to work out that a virtual tickle to people. But if anybody's feeling, I'm looking around some of the faces on the top of my screen here. I don't see many glum faces at all. But if you are feeling down, perhaps you need to try and, obviously you can't ask someone to tickle you now because we have to be socially distant, of course, yes. But find some way to give yourself a tickle and bring the happiness back in. What a great story. Is that from a book, Sangeeta? Where did you find that story? Sangeeta?
Her connection was bad, she said.
It's gone, yeah. Okay, I would love to know. I will follow that up with Sangeeta and find out whether that's an original story or it sounds to me as though it probably is.
Roger, the story is by Michelle Preen, The Lost Laugh. The name of the story is Lost Laugh.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sangeeta. And just love the energy and the musical introduction too. Great. So now, Sonja Bareja.
I am from Delhi, India, but there's someone who's very excited. Hello, my name is Chris, and I'm so excited to be sharing my story with you all.
Chris.
Can I? Yeah. Oh, hang on, Chris. Wait. Hi there. My name is Sonja, and I'm speaking to all of you from Delhi, India. And I'm a performance storyteller based out of Delhi. This is my story partner, Chris. You just saw. He was very excited and he wanted to share the story. He's still saying hello. But I've nicely told him that this is my turn to be on the story swap today and to share the story with you all.
That's okay. Right. Yes, he really needs. We have to open a new category for Chris
yes.
and for Swee's cat because we haven't got them in as tellers yet. But I'll discuss that with Sheila and Jiva and see how much we're
Oh.
going to charge for assistant. Tell us.
But he seems to be very happy, Roger,
Very
with
good.
this great news. But before I begin, I want to ask everybody that I hope that all of you are safe, happy, all your family, loved ones, everybody in this trying and unprecedented times. We all know that these are tough times. But, you know, as artists, we also know that, you know, we'll be out of this soon. And as Swee said very nicely that, you know, we like our audience, we like human beings in front of us. And this camera thing is definitely not for storytellers. Yeah. So
Okay.
the story, the story that I have chosen is an Iranian folk tale. And it's called The Story of Two Stones. And it's a very old story, but a very profound one. And it's a story that is very close to me for one special reason, that I have been using this story for, I think, many, many years, for not only for children, but also for teachers. When I do training with the trainers, my TTT program, Trainer program, for teaching 21st century essential skills. Because this story gives us one of the most important essential skills. But what is that skill is something which I'll talk about after finishing the story. So here goes the story. There was this one old merchant in a village, and he was very poor. He did not have any money to do his business. So one fine day, he borrowed some money from a rich friend of him, who was again a merchant. Now this rich guy gave him a lot of money, but did not ask for any date when should he return the money. And he just told him that, you know, you take it and you forget about it. So the old guy, the poor merchant, was extremely happy to take that money. He did his business. Months passed by, years passed by. Nobody came to take the money back. Until one day, when this rich merchant came to his village and asked him his money. And he was rather very stern and very angry. And he said, "You have not returned my money for these many years." Now the poor guy looked at him and said that, I'm so sorry, but you know, I'm still so poor. I still haven't been able to save any amount of money. So the rich guy looked at him with anger in his eyes and said, well, I don't know. You need to, and you got to return my money. And if you can't do that, you got to marry your girl with me. Now that was his cunning plan for all these years, because he was eyeing on that old man's daughter, the poor man's daughter. And now the girl has grown to be a beautiful one. And that's how he was there demanding his money back. Now the poor guy, upon hearing this, he just looked very, he started to look petrified. And he said, "Oh, I just can't marry my daughter to you. Look at your age. You're so old. My daughter is so young and so pretty, and she's so beautiful. I simply cannot marry my daughter to you." So the rich guy looked at him mercilessly and said, "Well, in that case, you got to return my money." Now this poor guy started to plead, and he started to look like this. "Please, if you can just give me a few more years, I promise I'll save the money and I'll return each rupee of yours." Now the rich guy looked really angry, and mercilessly he told him, "Nothing doing. All I need is my money back, or just marry your daughter. But well, because you are an old friend, I can do one thing for you. We can work out a plan. And the plan is, I'm going to pick out two small stones from the river flowing nearby. And I'm going to pick out one stone in black and one stone in white. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put these two stones in a bag. And then we'll call your daughter and ask her to pick one stone. If she picks out a black one, she has to marry me. But don't worry, you don't have to pay the money back. On the contrary, if she picks out a white stone, consider yourself lucky, man, because in that case, neither you have to pay me the money or repay the loan, nor your daughter has to marry me. Now, this is a fair game. because destiny is something that is going to decide the fate of your daughter. Upon hearing this, the old man was thoughtful. He thought for a few seconds and realized that, if it's destiny, let it be. Let destiny decide my daughter's fate. And he agreed. And the rich guy just went up to that nearby river, picked out 2 stones, and cunningly, sheepishly, he picked out both the stones in black color. And without showing it to anybody, he just put both the stones in the bag. And nobody saw him except one. And that one person who saw him doing this was the daughter. She was peeping through a window and she saw him doing this. She got up from her seat. She got very angry. She got furious. She was just about to rush outside. And she thought that she had 3 options. A, she could just simply say, no, I don't want to participate in this plan. B, I should just simply do as what my father is asking me to. C, I should just go out and tell everybody about this cunningness of the rich guy, how he has cunningly picked out both the stones in black. And she was just about to step out when she thought again, and she realized that if she does either of it, her father won't be saved. He'll still have to repay the money. And their situation was such that she knew that her father did not have any money. So she went back to her room. She sat and she kept on thinking. She kept on thinking until she thought of a plan. And when she thought of a plan, she had a smile and she stepped out. She came out, she looked at her father and told him that she was ready to take out 1 stone. She put her hand nicely in the bag and took 1 stone. Without showing it to anybody, she just dropped it in the flowing water. And the moment she dropped it, she said, "Oh, how clumsy of me. Oh, I just dropped the water. I just dropped the stone by accident. Oh, how are we going to find out now which colored stone did I pick out?" And at this, all the villagers looked at her angrily, and some of them even called her clumsy and, with lots of words. But after a few seconds, she just smiled. And she smiled and said, "Oh, well, I have another plan. Instead of doing this whole exercise again, why don't we just open the bag and see which colored stone is lying inside the bag?" And that would tell us that, and everybody, that which colored stone did I pick out? Upon hearing this, everyone was smiling except one. And that one man was the rich guy, because he knew that his plan was failing in a few seconds. So they opened the bag and they saw the stone inside the bag was black, and they really smiled. They started to clap. They started to feel very happy for the girl, because they told her that, "Wow, your destiny is super because you picked out a white colored stone," which goes on to say that your father doesn't have to repay the money, and you also don't have to marry this guy. And everybody was happy except for that rich guy, and he was forced to leave the village with a promise to never return and trouble the old man and his daughter. And the daughter then finally went up to her father. She hugged him and they smiled at each other. And as every story normally ends, they lived happily ever after. Now, this is where my story ends. And the skill that I use this story for with teachers, with children, is something what we always have figured out, that, when we look at a situation, there's always a conventional, logical way, and there is a lateral way. Or in most recent terms, we have started using critical thinking, or when I teach these kids, I say out of the box thinking. So it's very easy to go by your conventional approach, your set path, but it's very, very difficult to think out of the box, to think lateral and save yourself or put yourself in a better situation. So that's how I use it for in one of my modules as 21st century essential skills, and I use it for teaching critical thinking as a skill.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, yeah. Maybe it should be out of the bag thinking, actually.
Yeah.
But great, great. Yes, I was trying to work it out. What was she going to do? So good. I'm glad she managed to think of that one. Because now I'm really pleased to be able to welcome for the first time, making his debut here, is Ariel from the Philippines.
Hi, good evening.
And
hello, hi.
Hi, good, good. And we would really love to have a lot more Filipino members of Feast. And so I hope that you are having a good experience tonight, and that you will spread the word and encourage more to come along and join us, because I think it's we feel that our focus has been very much more towards the west of Asia, and we need to get more from the eastern side. So, which part of the Philippines are you in?
I'm part of Metro Manila, the capital in the northern part of the Philippines. So yeah. I learned about Feast because I'm part of an improv community here in Manila, and one of our improvisers, who's actually a choir master, posted the sign up for Feast on our Facebook page, and I signed up. I immediately checked the link, thought about it, and then decided to fill up the application and submit to the Feast. Yeah.
Well, I shall follow up with you, because I used to be, in a former life, I was into comedy improv, and I haven't done that for a long time. So that would be fun to catch up with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
being also on this in this platform, our improv team is supposed to be at Singapore around this time if the pandemic didn't happen, because of an improv festival in Singapore. So having this virtual gathering hosted by a Singapore group is somehow still making that
fly the flag
come true. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, good. Well, I hope your group will eventually be able to get here. That's great. Okay. So, your story.
Yes. Yeah. Should I start? Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to share some illustrations that a former student of mine drew. I asked her. She also now is a teacher in the same university where I teach Philippine language and Philippine literature. So I asked a former fine art student to do some illustrations, and so I'd like to share that as I tell my story. Okay. So here goes. How the lanzones fruit came to be. Back in the day, there was a time when stories were like fruits born by minds, which had their roots intimately grounded in the soil. Soil and souls of people left marks on each other, and memories traveled from one's foot to one's own imagination. Imagination took its shape, changed its form, when skin touched another surface. Surface, skin, imagination, soul, and soil wrote this story. Back in the day, my grandmother told me, a drought dwelled here in the soil of our village. All life left our small town. No one dared to set foot outside the parched earth. The people instead kept to themselves and whatever food they had saved. The village soil couldn't give life to anything except to a lone tree near a hut at the edge of the village. It was called the Lanzones tree, or tree of poisons, for it bore bunches of small, yellow, round, deadly fruit. Anyone who ate the fruit from the tree at the edge of the village will surely perish and die. Until one day, an old woman came knocking on villagers' doors asking for water, begging for relief under the scorching sun, but no one touched their windows or doors to offer her water or any help, or even to hear her story, why she came, how she found the village, why she was even there in the middle of death and drought. So she just moved from one house and door to another, knocking and getting ignored because no one wanted to share whatever they had, but instead chose to be devoured by the silent scarcity of their households. Until finally, the old woman's footsteps reached the last door at the edge of the village. The man who lived inside it seemed to understand the sound of old fingers knocking on old wood. He took a cup of water and opened the door for the old woman, who took the cup and drank. Life flowed from water to her throat, to her body, to her soul. The old woman handed over the empty cup to the man, and as the man went inside to fill it up again with water, the old woman brought herself to the lasones tree. The soles of her feet seemed to breathe life to the soil with every step she took. The man came back to his doorstep and saw the woman standing near the lasones tree across his hut, her feet kissing the soil below, her fingers about to caress the deadly fruit. The man dared to stop and step on the hot, dry earth to warn the old woman. But everything happened oh so quickly. The woman had already plucked the small, round, yellow fruit, pinched open its skin, and had put the white pulp to her mouth. Instead of dropping lifeless on the ground, the old woman radiated light. Her bare feet approached the man who gave her water, and every step she took made her seem to look younger. She took the man's hand and gave him the plucked and pinched open lasones fruit. The man then brought some pulp of the fruit to his mouth. Instead of perishing from eating of the fruit at the edge of the village, life flowed from fruit to his throat, to his gut, to his feet. His soul's bled life back to the soil as he walked inside our village back in the day, telling everyone of the life-giving lasones tree. Life bled back to our soil, our people would say, after a man and a woman shared of the fruit of the tree at the edge of our village. My grandmother, though, reminded me that life flowed back to our village because soil and souls, skin and surface, touched each other with nurturing kindness. And every time we would eat of the lanzones fruit, my grandmother would tease me to look for the pinch marks the old woman left on the fruit when she brought life to it. I think now when I get to have lanzones fruit again, I will reminisce the times when we could still walk the earth and exchanged kind, nurturing touch without worry. The end.
Wow. Wow. That's one of those moments, you know, it happens all the time on these shows like America Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent. And someone comes out on the stage and you think, what are they going to do? You know, what's this story? Yeah, what's this act going to be? And then they blow you away. And the way that you had described that story to me and how the Lanzones fruit came to be, and I thought, oh, this is just a simple little pourquoi story. And instead, it was fantastic. That was so beautifully written. Several people have already commented in the chat. Did you write the text?
Yeah, so it's a popular how something came to be told. So it's actually public domain, but I tried retelling it this way. Yeah, I retold it in such a way because for me, I think the concept of touch, the notion of being touched by
particularly at this
something
time
is something that we miss very much today.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. And you have a very poetic quality to your writing, again, I was just so taken with the opening and with the connection between the various things and how the story and the soul and the soil and everything was connected. And I just had it was the old fingers on old wood. You have a very poetic and musical quality to your writing.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not sure, quite honestly, that the pictures particularly helped you in terms of the story. I think you're obviously able to create a version of the story that is uniquely yours, and that actually just presenting yourself and being there in the story, you will really hold and engage people. And I don't think personally that you need the pictures. So is this a very popular fruit that in the Philippines?
Yes, especially I think in the summer until the rainy season. So around this time, April, May is our summer here in the Philippines because it's the driest season. And then come May, the first rains after a dry bout comes. So yeah, it's around this time that the lanzones fruit should be coming out. The what?
Does it have the little finger marks on it?
The pinch, you mean? So
yes,
I don't know. It's still around. It's still around yellow fruit. So that's also part of my curiosity growing up. When I heard this story from my mom, actually. So it's still around, smooth fruit. There's no cleft or not like a peach, for example, that has that ridge. The lanzones fruit doesn't have that. But it's one of those invitations to be more curious about things around you. Yeah, one of those tales. Yeah.
Well, it was truly magical, and the transition that you brought and the depth that you gave to such a simple story.
Thank you.
I think we will remember that for a long time. Thank you so much, Ariel. Great.
Thank you.
Okay. And now, it so happens we do have another natural connection, I believe so anyway, because Akila has a story that also features a plant, I believe. Okay, but I don't want to say too much because I don't want to steal your thunder. Hi, Akila.
Hello, Roger, and hello, everyone.
I know Akila because she's also here in Singapore, an important part of our community, and was with us last night when she stunned us all by bringing out her violin and playing it in the South Indian style, which was new to all of us. So, over to you.
Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be connecting with all of you from Singapore. I'm very happy to share with you a very simple story, which I have just only once told in public. And I would like to share this again with all of you and hope you enjoy it. Am I audible enough?
You are indeed, yep. And none of the problems from last night. Good connection.
I'm glad, thank you, yeah. Churi Pantaka was a simple man. Churi Pantaka was a happy man. Churi Pantaka was also a forgetful man, and he did not know how to read or write. Churi Pantaka knew only one thing to do, and the only thing he did was to sweep. And he swept the floors of the temple, morning, noon, and night. And Swee he did with profound happiness. One day, his brother visited him and spoke. Churi Pantaka, you don't know how to read or write, not even your name. And after your years are done, how do you expect to go to heaven? You cannot go to heavens. Let me help you at least to read your name, he said. And he removed Churipantaka's clothes and took a brush and some ink, and he started writing Churipantaka's name. On his arms, Churipantaka. On his legs, Churipantaka. Churipantaka, Churipantaka, all over his body. And even then, it didn't help. Churipantaka couldn't even begin to read his name. And people in his village belittled him, laughed at him. You look so silly. Look at you walking around carrying your own name in your body. And that broke Churipantaka's heart. And from a happy man who loved his job, he became a man in despair. And he sat in a corner of a house and he sobbed. Oh, I am so hopeless. I could never reach the heavens. Then he heard a voice which called out to him. And the voice said, Churipantaka, it's not hopeless. You work hard every day with your broom. Just have to remember that one word, broom. You see it has a brush on one end and a handle on the other. You keep it straight or upside down, it looks the same. You just have to remember your broom, Churipantaka. Broom. And with that, the voice disappeared. And Churipantaka grabbed his broom again and he started to sweep the floor. But this time, he repeated the word broom, and as he swept, broom, broom, broom. And one day, Churipantaka died with his broom. Remembered that one word, broom. People buried him with the broom, and in a few weeks, a plant began to grow from his grave. And then a bud appeared and a flower bloomed. It was such a sight of wonder. It had large leaves with strange markings, just like the writings in Churipantaka's body. Oh, don't even touch it. You could be as forgetful as Churipantaka. Touch it, said some. But there were others who were kind-hearted, who said, even simple Churipantaka went to the heavens. If we eat this plant, we could go to the heavens too. So people started to eat the crisp buds of the plant, which they called myoga. Myoga, my friends, in the Japanese cuisine, is a condiment that they use to garnish their food. It tastes like ginger with a hint of garlic. And myoga means plant from a man carrying his name. So people, you need not be perfect in everything you do. You just have to work hard and master one task to go to the heavens. This was the story that the priest told to hundreds of people. He had just finished telling the story of Churipantaka, and in the audience was an innkeeper who listened to the priest with deep attention. And as he listened, eyes lit up. Indeed, indeed, this priest is very wise. Oh, I hadn't known earlier. Myoga? Myoga can make one forgetful? Then myoga is the answer to all my problems, he said. And he briskly stood up and walked back to his inn to share this news with his wife. Just imagine if we serve myoga to all travelers who come and stay at our inn. They would forget their belongings and leave it back behind for us to be so rich. The wife was simply excited. And both of them waited for a traveler to arrive. And soon a traveler did arrive the following evening. A man with straw sandals, with a heavy bag and a heavier wallet on his jacket. He arrived, and the wife did notice the wallet. She nudged the husband to take notice too. The husband, the innkeeper, greeted him and showed him a very comfortable room. And the wife couldn't contain her excitement. She rushed to the kitchen and pulled out her pans, a chopping board, and she stepped into her kitchen garden. She plucked some fresh myoga, and she labored for the next half an hour to make the tastiest miso soup with myoga. Rice with myoga. She plated then the dinner and walked to the traveler's room. She served him. The traveler savored the dinner and said thank you and slept for the night. The next day, the traveler found that he was being woken up again by the smell, by the aroma of myoga hitting him again. And as he opened his eyes, he was very pleased to see breakfast was already served on the table. And it was fried tofu with myoga, some pickled vegetables with myoga. He had a hearty breakfast. He thanked the innkeeper and he left. Now the couple rushed to the room to find the wallet. Oh, I served him so much myoga, he must have left his wallet behind, said the wife. They rushed to the room. They looked, they couldn't find a thing. Oh, they always keep the wallet under the futon or the tatami mats. Could you check there? Said the wife. The innkeeper checked. No wallet. The wife rushed to the bathrooms. They checked the cabinets, closet, under the table, under the bed. Nothing, not a thing. Oh, this can't be true. How could myoga fail us? Said the wife. And in that instant, the innkeeper slumped down on the bed, realizing, oh, I know, myoga didn't fail us. I know what he has forgotten. But what have you found now? Asked the wife. He has forgotten to pay us.
Good ending, good ending. Yeah, thank you, thank you. And the god of storytelling was looking after you because the internet was there, but it held through to the end. So well done. Yeah, very good. And certainly that's the last thing you want in these times, isn't it? When money is so hard to come by that the last thing you want to do is to be forgetting to collect your bills. Very good, very good. I've been trying to get hold of Seth because I'm really trying to squeeze in an extra story. I think we are so starved, aren't we, of stories at the moment. So as we're here, and it's also very humbling, isn't it, that we're not considered an essential service. When really, I think just listening to the stories tonight, you realize how important stories are, and that they do actually reach other parts of the body that the essential services of the government fail to reach. So Seth, are you still with us? Yes. Okay. Let me unmute you. Very good. Oops. Let's see, can you unmute that? There you are. Nope, we've still
Can you hear me now?
We can indeed, yes, yes. And you have a really enjoyable story, a fun story for us as well, I think.
Yes, I hope so.
Tell us about how things are in London at the moment.
Oh, things are, I'm sure, the way that they are in other places.
Yeah.
So there's a lockdown and the police go around the parks. Even though you can walk in the park, they don't want you to sit down and eat your sandwiches and things. So we're trying to keep ahead of it. But yeah, but we're with the world. We all are in it together.
Sure.
And curiously enough, I'm very glad to be here with you in Singapore and in Moscow and in the Philippines and in India.
And also Argentina now. Anna's just joined us from from Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires, me gusta. I was in Buenos Aires a couple of years ago telling stories.
Wow.
Just going to be in Singapore for the International Storytelling Festival. I was going to be one of the tellers. So that couldn't happen this year, but here I am, and I'll tell you my story. If you're ready, you ready for me to start?
We certainly are. Thanks, Seth.
Well, this is a story from Korea, and I've done quite a lot of work in Korea over the years, and I've gathered quite a few stories. And so I'll begin. And in Korean, to say hello, you say, as you might know, 안녕하세요, 안녕하세요. And the story starts with the song. 바람이 분다, 바람이 불어, 연평바다, 바람이 분다, 바람이 불어, 올사전에 공밤이요. Winds gently blowing, winds gently blowing, our own sea breeze. Winds are blowing, and we will have roasted chestnuts, la, 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 la. Oh, it was the time of the chestnuts. It was autumn, and the chestnuts were falling now from the tree, because the old man and the old woman who had the chestnut tree, they were so old that they couldn't climb the tree to take the chestnuts, and they couldn't knock the tree with sticks so that the chestnuts were falling. But now they were falling, and they picked up the chestnuts and they roasted them. And the first thing they did was to take their first roasted chestnuts of the year to their neighbor. Now, this was a thing they often did because they didn't have any children. They always wanted children, but they never had any. And because they had no children, they couldn't work so easily digging in the soil, picking the chestnuts. But also because they had no children, the love that they would have given to their children, they gave to all the people around them in the village, and they gave to each other. They were the most loving couple, and they went to their neighbor who was rich. He had beautiful clothes. He had a very big belly because he'd been eating so many good meals. But they were poor. But nevertheless, the love that they shared meant that their neighbor would always have the first of anything they had. And now it was chestnuts. So they took their chestnuts to the neighbor, and they said, as they knocked on the door, knock, knock, knock. The neighbor opened. Yes? What do you want? Oh, dear neighbor, it is autumn. The chestnuts are here. And these are our first chestnuts that we have roasted. And because they are our first, they are for you. And the neighbor picked up the chestnuts and said, yes, okay. And he closed the door without even saying thank you. The same thing happened in the spring, when the first radishes came through, when the first lettuces came through. Dear neighbor, these are for you, because you are our neighbor, they are yours. And again, he would take them and he wouldn't even say thank you, because as well as being mean and as well as being greedy, he didn't think that he had to thank his poor neighbors for anything. Mean and greedy was who he was, but kind and loving were the old people. Well, winter came. And this winter, it was a really hard winter, and the snow fell, and the snow fell, and there was snow on snow on snow, and there was ice everywhere, and the old man and the old woman, they huddled in their little house, in their little fire in front of them. They put their hands in front of the fire, and they were shivering. The hands in front were warm, but the rest of their body was freezing cold. And the old woman looked into the corner, and she saw the wood pile, and she saw it was getting lower and lower and lower. And she said, if we don't get any more firewood tonight, we'll surely freeze to death. And the old man said, yes, I'll go and get some. But do be careful, you don't walk so well. Take your walking stick, and do be careful. You could fall over. You could break your leg. Do take care. Take care. Of course I'll take care. But if I don't get some wood tonight, as you said, we will surely freeze to death. And he walked with his walking stick into the forest, and his feet were going into the deep, cold snow. And even in the forest where there were trees, the snow still fell, and it was still deep. And he tried to move the snow away and find a little bit of a stick. But all the sticks were wet and cold and damp, very hard to burn. But he kept walking, and as he was walking through the forest, he heard. It was a little bird, a yellow bird, a songbird. A songbird? In the middle of winter? That's very strange. And the bird flitted from one branch to another and to another and to another, and went deeper into the forest. And so the man followed the bird until the bird came to one branch, and as if it was saying, look down, look down, look down. And the man looked down, and he saw a spring of water coming through the ice. Now he knew this forest, but he'd never seen a spring of water just there. But now he was tired, and now he was thirsty, and so he leant down and took a little sip of that water. And it was clear, and it was fresh, and it wasn't even cold coming out of the ice. So he took another sip. Oh. But now he felt tired, and so he thought, I'm going to have a little rest. So he leant his head against a tree, and he stretched his legs out on the cold, cold ice, and before you knew it, he was asleep. But when he woke up, he sprung up, and he started to move through the forest, and his thighs felt strong, and his arms felt strong, and he picked up wood, and he picked up wood, and he moved snow, and he found so much wood that in a very short time, his backpack was full of wood, and he had to hold on so that it didn't fall. And when he got back to the house, he couldn't knock on the door, he couldn't open the door, so he kicked the door, and his wife opened the door. And he said, what do you mean? She said, you're young. Feel your face. Of course, they didn't have mirrors in those days, so he felt his face. And there wasn't even a wrinkle. It must have been the water in the forest. You come with me, and you can become young again. And so he took her by the hand, and he started walking, but she said, wait, I'm still old, but you're young. Please help me. So he picked her up in his arms, and he took her into the forest. And where they found the water, she took one sip, she took two, and of course now she was tired. But rather than let her sleep on the cold, icy earth, he picked her up and he took her home. Well, the night came and the night went. And the next day, the neighbor, the rich neighbor, the mean, the greedy neighbor, he looked over his garden fence, What's going on? Who are those new people where my old neighbors were? What are they doing? Who are they? I'm going to find out. And so he walked across to his neighbor's house, who now were very busy mending the roof, repairing the paper windows, putting the kimchi into the earth to keep it preserved. And he walked up to them and he said, "Who are you? Where are my old neighbors? Where did you come from?" And being the kind and generous people that they were, they told him everything that I've told you. And before they finished their story, whoosh, he was off into that forest because he wanted some of that magic water. That was about 10 o'clock in the morning. But now it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And in the winter, in Korea, it starts getting dark at 4. And the woman said, "He must have fallen over and broken a leg, or maybe a wild animal ate him, killed him and ate him. We must go and find to see if he's okay." And so the young man and the young woman, as they now were, they went into the forest and they looked and they looked and they looked until they came to the place where that little spring of water was. But all they saw was a little pile of clothes. "Oh, you see, the animals have taken him and eaten him. They don't eat clothes, they just eat flesh and bones. You see, they've killed him. He's eaten up." But then they looked at the little pile of clothes, and the little pile of clothes started moving. And then they heard coming from the little pile of clothes, and they knew that it was a baby. And they knew that their greedy neighbor had taken more of the water than they had. He'd taken so much water that once more he'd become a baby. But she looked at him, and he looked at her. And without saying a word, each of them knew what the other meant. And they picked up that baby, and they took that baby home. And they looked after and loved that child. And the baby became a boy, and the boy became a young man. And everyone in the village said, "Isn't that young son the most kind and generous person?" And of course he was, because he'd had a second chance. Because maybe in his first life, he didn't get enough love. He didn't get enough kindness. And that is what he had in his second life. And that is the story of the Spring of Youth from Korea. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Seth. Thank you very much. Really, really. And for all of us who know Alicia Danjubang in Seoul, now we know her secret, I think.
Oh, yes.
Really? Yes? Yeah. Seth knows her as well, obviously. I know that story, but I've never heard it so beautifully told, Seth. And again, there's some very nice comments on the chat, and someone picking up this expression of strong love, the young man picking up, his wife and carrying her, and particularly also the way that you end the story and about second chances. And I think, as I began, perhaps the situation we're in at the moment, for all the adversity that it brings and the challenges of being perhaps confined together with your family, with your teenage son, much longer than usual, or with your spouse or siblings or whoever it is, but it perhaps does also hold those kind of opportunities too, for you to perhaps share, to be more generous, to build or take down fences, build bridges, and so on. So thank you, everybody. The story shops are just a wonderful thing, aren't they? They're a gift that we give ourselves. Just the variety of tellers, the stories that you choose to share, the way that you share them. And although we are separated by many miles, many hours. It's just wonderful that we can be together in this time and place. So thank you much, everybody, and can we give a big round to all our tellers for their contributions? Okay, and stay safe and keep sharing online. Okay?
Thank you.
See you on Wednesday.
Thank you.
so
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye-bye, and thank you so
Salamat,
much,
salamat.
everybody. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. Yes.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you
very much.
Stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very good. Look at all these faces going. It's just amazing. As people
Bye.
leave.
Thank you.
Yep. So wherever you are, okay, not just in Asia, but around the world, this is really exciting. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Bye.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Bye,
now.
everybody.
Hi, everybody.
I'm Roger. Thank you.
Pleasure. Well done. Well done, Ariel. We should be in touch again, definitely. So, wow, what a great session. What a great session.
Fabulous.
Really, you know?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And we've got here, am I saying that right? Is it Ilhan? How do I say your name?
Ilhan, I was just going to leave, but you have just called me.
No. He is from Turkey. So everybody say hello to our. Yes.
Hi, Lan.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I'm very happy, and I feel very lucky to be with you all. Thank you very much.
No, we're very happy, and I'm pretty. When we drew the map of Asia when we were setting up feast, we were very determined to keep Turkey. We could consider that as part of Asia.
Pin it, please. Okay.